Hey guys, it's OLED again. We're going to do a forge video this time, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. We're going to go intermediate. We're going to make a Bowie style kind of thing. Let's get right to it. Let's pick our steel. Let's go with the 5160 spring, just like we did last time. The spring is good steel.
Fuck all that wimpy shit. We're gonna use a big ass tie rod for a big ass knife. 'Cause it's fucking badass.
Now, any even moderately experienced metallurgist will immediately see that that is not a tie rod. That's a chromium steel looking piece of tool steel. I lost the actual tie rod in the move.
The one I used looked kinda like this.
Now here, let's do a little metallurgy. I'm going to spark test. If you notice, this is high carbon steel. There's almost little Christmas trees or fireworks that offshoot on the high carbon steel. In the low carbon, you can only see straight lines, which I'll show you better in pictures here in a sec. Okay, you can see the little offshoots. They look like little fireworks coming off of the lines. This is the carbon coming off of it. Here's another one. Now on the low carbon, you can see here and here these straight lines. Just very, very straight. No fireworks or nothing. See, there's one little piece of carbon right there. That indicates low carbon. So yep, more straight lines there. First thing, get your forge started, yo. Now this piece of steel will be a lot of heat, beat, and repeat. Look at the size of this thing. This is going to be a forging nightmare. But we can get this done. Look how fast we're moving. See how it's starting to flatten out already? This is after quite a few swings. This is a very thick piece of steel. Make sure you keep an eye on both sides of the steel that are flattening. But for now, I think it's time for a shop upgrade. So... now that we've upgraded our shop, remember the same thing from last time. You're going to want to be more accurate than imparting as much strength. Now you can see right here the pair of tongs that I have won't actually fit around my billet. So what I'm focusing on is flattening my billet out and thinning it so I can grip it with my tongs. And once I do, I'll use that to begin forging the tang. See, now she's starting to take the shape of bar stock, but the tip is looking a little funny if you notice. And again, since this is such a large piece of steel, most of this is going to be forging and actual profiling of the blade. Same thing as last time, never leave your steel unattended, and if you have a single burner forge like I do, make sure you focus your heat where you would like to be working. Now when attempting to hammer in a tip shape, part of the steel started to fold over in the shape of a C. This is called a fish mouth. I'll show you what it looks like, and this can cause a cold shut. You see these little butt cheeks right here? That comes from forging in a fish mouth and continuing without fixing it. Now here's the definition of a cold shut while I show you my cemented base of my anvil. Fish mouthing and cold shuts are absolutely no bueno. This piece will have to be fixed while forging or be completely removed. Now notice I keep flipping my steel on either side as I'm forging. To the trained eye, you'll see that it's will start banana shaping out as you start implying force on the opposite side. Just make sure that you keep flipping as you're drawing it out to keep it flat on both sides. Right around now is when you can start to get excited that it's actually starting to take the shape of a bar, and you can begin to think about the profile and side/shape of your blade. Now I put this part in slow-mo because you can really see on the end there that fish mouth starting to happen. And if you pay attention to here, you'll notice that I do something that is equally stupid and impressive. Let's see that again. Woo! I broke my anvil. Shit. Another reason you don't want to go too hard, you can break your anvil. It'll make your little man balls feel good, but it will cause all kinds of issues. You can see here, due to the fish mouthing, I completely removed the tip. Now, when you're forging a tip, generally you want to put the spine of the blade on the anvil and then forge in the actual tip at the angle you would like to. While you're doing this, you will be forging in a drop point in the top of your blade. If you would like to have a straight edge, you just turn the blade around and correct for that dip. And after many hours of forging, flattening, and doing correct angles, we end up with this. At this point, you can see where I'm going for. You can see the tang, you can see where the tip is coming in. Notice I didn't forge in a complete sharp point tip or complete bevels. You do not want that before the quench because there's a good chance they could get burned. I'm showing you here the curve I want in my handle and how I get it with the horn on this anvil here. Now, similar to last time, it will be grinding time. Any points where you were forging and said, I will fix that while grinding, now is the point to fix it while grinding. Any cracks or hammer marks must be ground out now. You can also assist your profile with the grinder at this point. You can see now we're starting to get a very attractive shine on the blade as I'm removing the deep divot marks. Now you can really see the profile coming out. Funny thing about steel too, I didn't intend this to be a Bowie knife. When you're working steel, sometimes you just have to kind of let the steel do what it wants to do and move the way that it wants to move. Now is where you're going to want to take a look and start fitting everything up for the guard. Right here, these larger parts on the tang are called the shoulders. I ground it this way so the guard can fit snugly. Also right here where your tang meets the guard, you want to be perfectly flat so there's no gapping between the tang and the guard. Alright, as soon as we're all ground up and we have a good shape and profile and the sides have been ground in good, we're going to go ahead and drill in our holes for our pins. If I could get my arm out of the way, I could show you that I'm spraying it with a Hops gun oil just to keep my drill press cool. Here you can see the pinhole drilling was successful. You can also see that I have my guard all shaped up and ready. You want the guard hole to be the same length and width as your tang. Also, if you look here, you'll see that I ground in this little nub, and that's going to be for peening my handle on, but we'll do that later. So at this point, I'm going to do most of my grinding prior to quench to avoid heat issues. I'm going to grind in most of my bevels and most of my tip, but not all the way again, just to avoid them getting burned. Alright, turn your forge on because it's time to get ready for the quench. Remember to keep an eye on your steel and heat it evenly. This is also the time when your steel can burn at the tips and edges if your bevels are ground too thin. Now what you're seeing here is that is a fishing magnet that I'm putting it against. When your steel is ready, it will be non-magnetic. Actually a little beyond non-magnetic, and you see here I put it in slow-mo so you can see it dragging the magnet. Here you'll notice it's non-magnetic, but I'm going back in because again you want to go just a little bit beyond before the quench. A couple seconds. Sorry for the crap lighting, but we're just dipping in regular old vegetable oil. Leave it in there for a minute or two. Here's what she looks like after she's cooled, and if a file skates off of it, then the hardening is successful. At this point now you can start doing your final grinds and putting in sharp edges on it, but make sure, very important, you have a cup of water to dip in. Do not get this blade too hot. You can ruin your quench. Here's the bevel jig I used to grind. Also very important, your edge again will not cut if your edge geometry is not perfect. I suggest using a bevel jig. Alright, let's talk handles. I'm going to show you the process that I use here. These also aren't the slats that I use, just some test slats to show you. Once your guard is fit up, you're going to get both of your handle slats like this. You want them to be as even and as smooth as possible. You're going to line them up and mark them. I'm marking the inside of the slat. I'm going to mark the arrow on what side is going to face the inside, and an arrow on what side is going to face the top. Alright, now we have our slats all marked up. You can see that I've already marked where the holes are on the blade and drilled. I'm setting the pins in now to show you how everything goes in. You're just going to make sure everything fits nice and smoothly. I set my blade on top of there just to make sure those holes go in. And to get the reverse side, all you have to do is flip the first block and then drill holes right through them. So I'm also going to go ahead and show you here my process for epoxying the handle on, because we missed it last time. When you put your epoxy out, make sure that you mix it all up completely, or it will not bind very well. Right here, we're going to go ahead and start to apply epoxy to the first side of the blade. Epoxy has to go to every single side of the slat that will be touching the blade, or excuse me, the tang, and every single part of the tang that will be touching the slats. So just make sure you go ahead and cover it nice and well. Also, clamps will be required here, and you'll see why they're very, very important in just a second. Now here we're applying epoxy to the pins as well as the slats. Do not forget to apply epoxy to the pins. This is going to help the pins grip the tang and the other slat. So make sure that you put enough on there. Don't be shy with your epoxy as well. Now here's where everything is going to fit together. We're going to get our first slat on right there. Make sure everything goes on all the way and your epoxy is actually touching your tang. And you'll see again when the clamps go on, it's going to make a big difference. Alright, right here everything should snap together nicely. Your pin should fit in nice and snug. Your guard should not be moving. Don't worry about that little excess in the end. That'll all be ground off. Everything will be ground even after this point. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my first clamp on. Make sure it's nice and tight, but not too tight to damage your handle slat, especially if it's already been carved decoratively. Now you'll see coming up here why the clamp is so important. Alright, on tightening the second clamp right here. And let's see that again. If you look closely, look at the size of that space right there that's being closed by the application of the clamp. That's going to really ensure a good seal on my handle. So after it's all clamped together and drying, you should have something like this. Here I am cutting off the excess of the pins. Look, you can tell now that they're low carbon that I used for the pins. Cool. At this point, it is just going to be a lot of handle grinding. And this part is really fun because you really get to start feeling out and deciding what kind of shape you want for your handle. After a little bit of handle grinding, this is what she looks like. She's still got a little bit of ways to go, but we are almost there and we'll be preparing our butt cap. Alright, the handle's almost ready for hand sanding and the butt cap is almost ready for application. Let's get our butt cap fitted. You want to make sure the hole in your butt cap is the same size as the hole in your pin. Now it's time to peen. Notice I put my blade in a glove before I put it in the vise to protect it. While you're peening, you want to go nice and slow, and you're going to need a peening hammer. It's one of those ones with a little ball on the end of it. And if you go slowly and you get a successful peen and it holds your butt cap correctly and you grind it down to match, you get this. Alright, right here I'm just applying a stain. This right here is pretty self-explanatory. Whether or not you want to put 1 or 2 coats, do your best to avoid the tang if you can or if you want to. Now I'm just using a carving tool to put in a little bit of an artistic design. Here I'm just using a small art tool to add a little bit of color to my design. Now I'm going to show you how I put my final coating on, my clear coat. This is a polyacrylic that I use and I'm very generous with it. This is going to add a nice sheen, a little bit of grip, and a little bit of durability to your knife. Make sure you let it dry really well before you handle it again. Now for your sheath, you're going to need some leather scissors. Just go ahead and trace both sides of your blade on 2 pieces of leather. Make sure you leave a little bit of space on either side when you cut it out for the holes. You're also going to need a leather punch too. When you punch out the holes just like this along, you just use some simple twine to tie it up and make sure Truffle approves, just like normal. Now you can see right here the sheath is all tied together on all ends and the blade fits in there nicely. Got to make sure that it cuts, and she definitely does. It cuts really well, in fact. So let's see that one more time. Make sure that she cuts really well. And there she goes. We did a great job, it looks like. And it looks like we did an excellent job making a blade. Thank you so much for sticking with me, you guys. Wow, what a great blade. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video. This blade is going to be my new carry, and I need help naming it. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Bang, bang, super bang, luck, rap, and roll. We're getting serious now.